My name is Nicolas. I shall be your DM and Dungeon Master for this presentation. I shall be talking about Dungeons and Dragons. So, just to ask, has anyone ever heard of this other than you? Because I know you've told me you had a friend before. Has anyone else ever heard of this topic before? Or have any idea what it is? That's true. I know most people don't actually know about this. So, the first question we have to talk about is, what is it? Can you hit the next slide? And for me, from my own experience, my definition is it's a theory of the mind where the player makes and narrates, develops the world they create. In short, a group of people get together and they make a world together. They make decisions together and they make the story together. They are the authors of this world and they are the people in this world. So it offers freedom of choice, freedom to choose. And you yourself are the players, the protagonists. You make the story. And of course, it's facilitated by dice and other tools. Personally speaking, I brought some of my own. This is my own D20 sided dice. This is a larger version compared to the normal ones. This is roughly twice the size of a regular sided D20. We'll be using that later. So, next slide. So, Dungeons and Dragons began in the 1970s by the three creators Gary Gygax, Jeff Perrin, and Dave Anderson. Originally, actually, Gary Gygax, this is photo here, and Jeff Perrin, they were interested in war games. In other words, to simulate war in terms of in the battlefield. They wanted to make a way that people could make rules of, say, a knight were to hit a horse. What exactly would you do there? How do you play that scenario out? So they made a set of rules, and originally that was called chainmail. And in this book, it's pretty much saying that people simulate medieval warfare. If people wear armor and just thinking through in your head what would happen if people fought. It wasn't until Dave Anderson joined the last two and added a fantasy element after Lord of the Rings was more popular, introduced elements like elves, orcs. And that's when together they created the first edition of Dungeons and Dragons. Next slide. During the development course of Dungeons and Dragons, there were several hiccups and or problems they managed to get through. The main of which almost killed the entire thing was the fact that people or religious people were afraid of Dungeons and Dragons. The problem being from the first incident, James Dallas Edward III, he was a 16-year-old boy who unfortunately became lost in the steam mines of his school. And an investigation was put in to try to find him. He was located and brought back to his parents, but after 1 week of being found, he committed suicide. His parents blamed this on his role-playing activities of Dungeons and Dragons, but further studies later proved that it was more of a psychological problems based on his family rather than playing any game like this. Unfortunately, the stigma caused by that still reverberates to common day. And even now, people are still, certain sects of religious groups are still saying that Dungeons and Dragons is related to Satanism and don't wish for their children to play. The good news is, and next slide, that today it's actually very popular for some reason. The number of people playing Dungeons and Dragons have been on the rise. This is a picture of the current 5th edition handbook, which on Amazon in 2017 was ranked 40th for bestseller, and in 2018 was ranked 21 for best-selling book. Over here, if you were to look at this is an industry report from a certain website called Roll20, where Roll20 is essentially where people play Dungeons and Dragons and other tabletop-style games online. In 2018, this first quarter, Dungeons and Dragons was the first rated game, taking over 68% of the total player base. And the total amount of games and players was roughly 70,000. And this is just a single and the most popular version of the online website. There are other types as well that have a similar function. Next slide. This is probably the cause of why it's really popular in common day. This group of people are all voice actors, and they all play Dungeons and Dragons together, online, in a streaming service on Twitch. They play every Thursday night for the last almost 4 years now, and their concurrent viewership when they're streaming live can reach almost 60,000, which is 60,000 people and more on nice nights. And the reason why they're so popular is, well, their voices can be heard in many games medias that you may know of. Travis Willingham, he voiced Roy Mustang from Full Metal Alchemist. Ashley Johnson, she is in the show Blindside, and she also is the voice of Ellie from The Last of Us. Matt Mercer, if you ever played Overwatch, he is Jesse McCree and many other voices. So this group, they are so popular that they launched a Kickstarter. Does anyone here know what Kickstarter is? A crowdfunding? Or essentially, do you ever heard of that?
Is it something like GoFundMe?
Yes, it's similar to GoFundMe, but Kickstarter being essentially you put up a project and then you ask for a goal to see how much people fund you. So they asked to fund a project based on their Dungeons and Dragons adventures, turn what they played into an animated show. And can you go to the next slide? In 45 days, they managed to get a pledge of over $11 million. And I too also backed this project up. They raised this money from the fans that supported and watched them play Dungeons and Dragons. And they managed to gather additional support. So, next slide. Unfortunately though, it's really hard to explain this subject because it's not something you really talk about, it's something you must do. So for this, I would like to have a volunteer. Remember. What's your name, please?
Sachin.
And everyone give a clapping hand to Sachin, my lovely assistant. He will be my guinea pig and test subject to show you just a small example of how this could work. Can you go to the next slide? Can you grab a dice? So, begin the story. You're walking in the fields, through the grasslands, just admiring the nice day. The sun is in the sky. The wind is fine. But suddenly, a misty fog rolls in. What do you do? What do you do? Start?
Just walking.
You just start walking. You walk around, and the fog is everything. Your vision is, you can only see maybe 2 feet in front of you. You wander aimlessly around, but you notice the mist is not dissipating. It's suddenness. It takes you by surprise, and you're in wonder. What do you wish to do? Do you just keep walking? Which direction do you wish to go?
More visible.
Like a rolled dice then. Yeah, go ahead. Roll the dice on the table. Roll it.
I'm gonna say that.
18. He rolled an 18. Meaning his vision in this particular moment, surprisingly well, seeing through the fog a bit more, you notice that the visibility seems to be better towards the northeast. Do you wish to go there?
Yeah.
You start heading towards the northeast, and you notice that as you walk through the grassland, there's a slight slant going down. Your footing gets caught off, and you start to tumble. Roll the dice again. 2. This time, as he tries to catch himself rolling down the hill, unfortunately, he is unable to muster up any strength, and he keeps tumbling down. He falls and falls and falls. He hurts himself, but eventually the ground catches his fall. He's bruised now. And you stand up, you're weary, and you look around, and the fog is still there, but not as much. You hear voices in the distance. You hear, but what do you wish to do? Sorry? You hear voices in the distance. You notice that you're now back towards the hill that you just fell down on. You can move forward or you can move back.
Move on that direction that the voice comes from.
Okay. You slowly move through the direction where you hear the voices.
Yeah.
You hear almost ominous whispers saying, "Go back! You're not meant for this world. Flee!" You still go.
I don't think so.
You stop where you are.
Yeah.
Next slide. Suddenly, you're confronted by this misty figure. You look and see, and it goes above and looms over you. It says, Why are you here? What do you say? Tell me why you are here.
Let's go back.
You turn around and leave.
Yeah.
Alright, so next line.
He will eat you that
You turn around and you find, yeah, the exit's right there. The exit's right there. Yep. Do you walk through the exit?
Yeah.
And that's exactly what can happen. Next slide, that's fine. So you see, in that particular moment, he had many choices. He was confronted, he was bound, he was lost, and he walked in the mist. He was confronted by this large creature they didn't understand. But it was his choice, and he simply turned around and walked away. He didn't have to fight, and he chose to flee, which is completely, utterly fine in this circumstance. And, well, he survived. He was bruised, but he wasn't dead, so congrats to him. And that's the end of my presentation.